Hi, I'm Leslie Helpert, and the following is part of a series called The Mechanics of Self-Trust. If you don't have the entire series of nearly 20 conversations yet, you can get them all for free by simply going to dynamicvoicetraining.com/conversation-series.html. That is dynamicvoicetraining.com/conversation series.html. Thanks so much. Enjoy. I am so happy to get to share this space, this time with someone I hold near and dear, an artist I love, Joy Barnum. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you for having me.
Aw. Well, I'm going to give a little overview of my version of your bio, and you can,
Okay.
yeah, you can elaborate for us. So I know Joy from times I've spent in the past getting to perform in Bermuda many years in a row and doing a musical residency there as well. And Joy is an exceptional artist and educator as well, a musical artist, creator, and heartfelt human who, in my opinion, is just, I just want to say you're the queen of Bermuda.
I know some people who might not like that, but that's okay. We're friends. I'll clear it with them.
Okay, cool. Well, there can be many queens, right?
Right? Yes. Yes.
And you can be many archetypes. You don't have to be just the queen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I'm so blessed that I've had the chance to continue to know Joy and to have a friendship with this precious human that we're going to get deep with. And that Joy, you've made time to be part of this series that I felt really called to create a little bit more than a month ago, called I'm calling The Mechanics of Self-Trust. And I've been sort of just conversing with a bunch of people. Some I know and love, others are newer connections, or even people I've just had a lot of reverence for, all on sort of how we have trusted ourselves and how we understand trust, how we can maybe do trust more in the moment present way. How can we locate it in the body, and then how do we trust into the unknown? And I thought that it would be so great to talk to you for a few reasons. One, because you are a performing artist and an educator of music, and you have crossed so many different spectrums of classical opera singing, classical music, to you have such a large vocabulary of musical passion. And I feel like you're someone who has always come back to just trusting who you have to be. I also feel that Joy is, just a couple more things about you before I start to let you talk. I could let them come up later, but Joy is one of the most generous people I know. Really, I'll never forget when I was doing my residency in Bermuda and I had like a video shoot. Joy, you stayed up all night sewing a dress for me to wear, a cool jacket actually. And also Joy is an incredible cook. Recently she was in New York City providing meals for a close friend of hers who had just had a baby. And if for no other reason, there are many reasons to follow Joy on Instagram, but one of them is to just see the beautiful food you make. And I really want to get into that with you too, because I feel, especially as a woman, you let yourself, you honor your cravings and you eat what you want, and it's beautiful and it's like comforting and healthy, and you really live in that intersection. And I love in your posts, you're always like, I was craving this. So I'm going for it. And so I just want to hear about you. And even right now, like another thing too that made me really curious to connect with you is that you're in Bermuda, and Bermuda is a small community ultimately when we come down to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's considered a country, an independent country, right? Even though I've been there so many times and I even lived there, I'm always like checking in on that because it's UK still somehow. And
yeah, we're allowed to have our own governing body, but we are dependents of Britain. So they have governors, and they bring governors in to be like a figurehead. But we have our own currency, our own parliament, all of that kind of thing. But parliament, again, is a very British term.
Well, I've loved being in Bermuda. So let's talk a little bit just about Bermuda and community. Because one of the things I feel in Bermuda, and I'm interested to hear your light on it, is that when I was in Bermuda, I really felt that people, I know there's a giant Portuguese community in Bermuda, because the Portuguese were the first people to come through Bermuda. I heard that they like dropped down a pig basically and like went my friend told me that. But
and they rode on a rock and let everybody know that they're there. And for the longest time, even though we have such a giant Portuguese community, this rock in Spittle Pond was called Spanish Rock because no one could understand the writing of it. So they were convinced Spaniards had come, and Portuguese people were like, wow, that's Portuguese. That's our language. And it had to be like, our history had to be reshaped into from what we were taught to what we actually know now.
When was that?
Are two totally different things.
What we're taught and what we know are what we learn. What we're taught and what we freaking learn are two different things.
Yes.
I want to just come over there and hang out with you right now in person. So wow, that's great, Joy. That's great. If nothing more, like let's just keep going back to that. So when was it that Bermuda finally realized, wow, these are Portuguese roots we have?
It was recently. It was in the last couple of years, honestly.
Jesus, did everybody do like a 23andMe and they were like, I'm Portuguese?
Probably. I think when there's so much erasure in society, it's very easy to accept the story that you've been told. But then to have somebody come and say, actually, no, this is my heritage and this is our language. And I mean, why would you refute it? There's no reason to. They're like, oh, we're wrong. Okay, this is awesome. So you're here longer than we actually originally thought. Because via the Caribbean trade of human bodies, human trafficking, a lot of human bodies came from West Indies here. So they were the first here to work the land. And then, of course, as we're learning through history, there's a huge amount of selfishness that comes with wanting to own a body. So upon not being able to own those bodies and receiving reparations for no longer owning those bodies, that money was then sent to the Azores to bring in Portuguese people to do all the work for a minimal fee. So while they are treated they were not paid enough to do the things that they do, they're very great horticulturalists. They are amazing agriculturalists, and they work within their community to make sure things happen. And it's just so amazing to see how they thrived within this culture, being paid the pennies that they were paid. That said, they were brought in to basically tell the human traffic bodies, you're still worthless because we're not going to pay you to do this job. And we're going to pay these people to do this job. And that setup of selfishness was so that people would still find this hierarchy of classism. But what's really cool about Bermuda is it's too tiny for that crap. And Portuguese people love the bottom bodies, and now the Bermudians, and Bermudians love Portuguese people. And now we're all just Bermudian, which is great. Of different cultures, but all Bermudian, and I just love it. I love it.
Me too, honestly. I mean, so it's so hard to even like sum up what growing up in the States was like. And in fact, I have a really cool interview with a inclusivity specialist, and we kind of talk about that because we both grew up in the States, and really cool different experiences. But one of the things I loved when I first came to Bermuda, and that was probably in 2000. No, I mean, I had come as a child. That's the strange thing.
Oh, really?
We've been here. My parents had like a anniversary, and for whatever reason, they invited me on their anniversary.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I remember, and then one of my friends, who we both know, a beautiful poet and ethnobotanist, incredible woman, invited me. I'm like, allowed, because I was like, I'm coming. And then I met a bunch of great musicians and artists. And at that moment, I was like, I want to be in Bermuda every year for the rest of my life. I just said that to the world because I felt this power. I mean, through even the mythology of the Bermuda Triangle, mythology or not, is it or not?
No, I just love it. And I love people. So I was interviewed for tourism when they were trying to figure out what I love about Bermuda, and if I could entice people to come based off of what I love. And it was part of the Go to Bermuda campaign. And I was like, they were like, how offended are you by the term Bermuda Triangle? I'm like, not very at all. I love it.
You're like, you're in it now.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I love the whole theory and concept that we could possibly be Atlantis somewhere around here. I think it's great. I think that a life without magic is just so bland. And I love
so magical. And alive, and that's the thing with the idea of magic, is that people consider it not practical or not functional or not real. But when we understand it as joy, wonder, curiosity, these are the
application of things that you don't know. Just magic.
Oh, I love it. So, but back to Bermuda, when I came to Bermuda, I was so excited because for me, in the music world at that point, it was so dominantly masculine and white. And I'd already really felt that heavily. And then when I came, I mean, and it's not so much that way anymore, but still, there is a lot of separation still.
Yeah. Femininity is quite separate.
Yeah, and so when I came and I was playing with people who were like Japanese Canadian and Afro Caribbean and like all different denominations, Portuguese, and no one seemed to be like uncomfortable because there had been community that had already formed, and that created safety and trust between people.
I was just talking about this yesterday with my sister. She was saying, we grew up in California for a little bit when I was quite young, from 2 to 6, because we left Bermuda to go to California for my mom to finish school, because Bermuda doesn't have the highest of continuing education, so it stops at your associates, doesn't finish for your bachelor's, so go away. And we're in California, and my sister said when we went to the school that we were going to start at 7 and 8, she's just like, it just felt so different, not feeling like I had to claim myself. And I was quite young, so I didn't know what she was talking about, but she'd experienced different things when we were in California that I just didn't experience. So she'd had those names called and all of that sort of thing. And I'd never experienced that, so I didn't have that. I guess I've always felt a sense of belonging no matter where I am. I'm the kind of person, when I go to a hotel, I unpack my whole entire bag. And I'm like, this is my home, this is where I live right now. I'm that girl. So I always feel a sense of belonging. But for my sister, when she landed in Bermuda, she felt, because there is a level of acceptance here.
You're making me want to jump on the plane.
Do it. Come stay
serious. I'm like, wait, I can do that. Yeah. And here's another thing I personally feel about Bermuda, now that we're just sort of riffing on Bermuda a bit, is that I was so surprised how so many Bermudians, at least some years ago at first, would sort of glorify the quality of, work or craft or whatever that was available in the States, and that there was like a limited amount of people doing those things. But every person I met in Bermuda who did something professional was actually at the best, at the top of their game. And I think it's because it's such a small country. If you're going to do something, you got to do it well.
People are not going to play with you. They're like, no, that's not it. You have to. There is a level, and then the level is right here. And you need to exceed that to get any respect here. Because you can sing and sit in a crowd and they'll stare at you like this the whole entire time. So until you exceed that, you haven't arrived.
I love it.
No matter what you do. Yeah, I don't think, I feel like here is a wonderful place where mediocrity is not celebrated.
Mm. And so what about the kind of, so we talked about like the integration of, you know, these hierarchical cultures, but what about even sort of the what British sort of aristocracy kind of energy, like the even also there's like there was a lot of corporate presence in Bermuda, or is, because of like tax breaks, or what is it?
So we have a lot of international business here based off of reinsurance. So there's a whole pile of reinsurance, and I just don't understand it. How do you need insurance for your insurance? Clearly, insurance is flawed in some sort of way. That you need insurance for your insurance. And that makes zero sense to me. It's like wearing two condoms. Sorry. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It seems completely ineffective. I don't get it, but it works here. And that has opened up our culture to a lot of Canadian and Filipino society as well, a lot of East Indian society as well. So we're this giant melting pot. So on Canada Day, we're all at the beach together, like, yay, this is great. We're celebrating Canada Day. On on our 24th of May, there's a Filipino float, and there's a Portuguese float, and just everybody is like, yeah, we're all here, and it's a good time. As with any place, there is xenophobes anywhere and everywhere you go, but I don't associate with them, so my life is my life isn't full of that. I notice it and I confront it, but I don't surround myself with that. So I'll just be like, that was really ignorant. You calling me ignorant? That was really ignorant. They're really cool, so I'm just gonna go over there now. And then we just enjoy ourselves. Like I don't open myself up to that. I love the fact that Bermuda is so inclusive. And
Maybe the solution for all of our global issues that are going on is just to have another Pangea break and create a bunch more islands in the world.
that would be so cool. Just because you said that, I want you to show. I want to show everybody that.
Yes, we're getting a view. Everyone's gonna get to like have a moment in Bermuda.
You gotta be able to see this, I think. So there's some garden. Oh yeah. So
Ooh, ooh, is that the ocean?
yes.
Oh, I did not know you. I only looked at your front window. Is this your back window?
Yes. Where
the rest of our conversation
view is from my bathroom. Hilarious.
I'm just like, you know what? Can we do this again later? And you just put your computer there for a while, and I'll just hang out by the ocean.
That'd be great. Yeah.
In your bathroom. So let's get into your work as an artist. I mean, so it's. I know because I've spent so many years in this space of performing, and which has really shifted for me the last like 3 years. It's crazy to even imagine, because I've connected so much to that experience of sharing music. And I know that there's nothing else that replaces really being able to feel with live music.
Yep.
And then to be able to experience the effect of that feeling by creating other people's creating the opportunity for other people to feel themselves, like that symbiosis.
When I first heard you, I had never heard of you, and my friend Laurel said, you got to come to this concert at Lindsay's house. And I was like, a concert at a house? I don't know what you're talking about. And Lindsay had gotten every Green Earth product, everything together in her front yard, a tent and everything. And you opened your mouth, Leslie, and like tears just came to my eyes. And I just turned to Laurel and I said, thank you. And I think it was like $75 or something like that, which is total base price for Bermuda. That's totally great. I charge $80 for tickets. That's a normal thing. But I spent $75 for a house concert to listen to somebody I'd never heard before. And within the first, I'm gonna cry now, within the first second of you opening up your mouth and me hearing the gift that air is for your vocal cords, I just said thank you. And that was it. And she just looked at me and we both cried together, because you're singing and the way the words float off of your tongue, the way you want us to experience it, the way you have your emotion pour into the microphone, I was just like, I'm in love forever. End of story. That's it. And I could just listen to you all day. So the fact that you've taken that one experience and shown me that people aren't one dimensional, I am going to cry, sorry. But people aren't one dimensional and you have so many things to offer, and that you can take that voice and put it in your hand and create art, visual art, that you can take that visual art, put it in here and write it down as a plan. Like, you embody art and artists to me. And I am deeply thankful and grateful to have been exposed to you. And you're like a wonderful surprise. And it was just the best thing. So the fact that you even consider me to have as a guest just makes me so happy. Because I like that you can see me and I can see you. And that just, I see you right here. And that makes me so happy.
Oh my gosh. That just fed me so much. Speaking of trust, like, just to be able to receive that, to even start to try to receive, like, receiving is a giant,
it's a task.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit about how as an artist you receive, because you move people like this too. You move people, and
Thank you.
and people feel that nourishment that you offer in your cooking, in your kindness, in your artistry, in your fashion. I mean, you have the fashion shoots that you do, and like the amazing thing too is that, like, in Bermuda, people are like dressing you. I
love that.
You get
That's the best.
in these
I
outfits, and like, oh God, it's so good. And so just to receive, especially as a woman, knowing that there's value in who we are beyond this outer thing, how do we really receive and have it feed us?
I was actually taught, I was raised in a very Christian society, so I was taught that saying thank you means that you did it yourself and without something higher, and that it was a selfish thing to do. So imagine going to school, honing this craft, and then having people say, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And then just this mental block in my head. What do I say? What do I say? How do I do? And then just having like a complete meltdown and freeze. And I had to go to a therapist to be like, I don't know what to say when people say that they had like a wonderful experience, and $267 an hour for this therapist. And he said, have you tried? Thank you. And I was just like, I can say that? I can say thank you? And he was like, yes, you can say thank you. You can feel thank you. And if you start to feel overwhelmed, you can ask them what their favorite part was and kind of like deflect and take it off of you. And over the years, that's turned into a natural thing for me because I want to know what the other person got from it. I don't want to tell people what to feel before I sing. I wrote this song because I was thinking, but I just want to sing the song and whatever you take from it. And whenever I get to hear other people's take of it, that feeds me. So when people comment on the songs or for quarantine, yummy quarantine, I decided to challenge myself because I couldn't sit here and do nothing. So I went on YouTube and I had heard this playlist by Louis Capaldi's Bruises. And I'd heard this playlist while I was at the coffee shop, Rock Island. And I was like, it'd be really cool if I sang every single song on this playlist. So for quarantine, every night I would pull up the next song on this playlist and I'd be like, okay, cool. And I started a TikTok account, and every night I sang a minute of whatever the song is because it's only 59 seconds. And so like I'm going through the song and I know I have a certain amount of time. I know I want to do it in one take because I don't want the ideology of perfection to be something that imprisons me, because I can be a perfectionist when it comes to performances, but I wanted it to be, I'm going through this the same as you guys. I'm all alone, the same as you guys. So then let's be together in our separation. Let's actually be together. So I would do it in one take. And so I was like, this is my one take challenge. I probably got like maybe 2 views, 3 views. Now it's up to 468. And people are like, going on and talking, oh, I liked when you did XYZ. Oh, I love this song. This song touched me. This song is really great. And now we like get to have this conversation together, even though we're not allowed to be in a concert room together. I guess being able to accept what people feel in there and being able to give it and just sit in it has been a study for me. Because you have to sit in it sometimes and just absorb what the person is saying, because that's a totally different energy than what I was giving out. And then I get to sit in that and think about life from that angle. And I think probably that's something that empaths do a lot. Think about life from somebody else's lens and then sit in it and appreciate it. And I appreciate what everybody brings to the table. And I appreciate that they allow me to sit at their table consistently.
Oh my God, I want to pay you $267. Oh, you know, that was so cool, because while you were telling me to do that, I actually practiced it and I realized something, and I want to know what you think about this, right? So I was raised sort of, I trained myself and then somehow ended up, you know, really being kind of performative. And that's why the methodology of voice work I teach is the combination of therapeutic and performative, both, because I don't ultimately want to divide the two. Like, why would we just be walking around operating without it being like what would feel integral to our system
and healthy?
Yeah. And isn't that sort of the divide that's like screwed up anything that is askew?
Pretending that anything is outside of us is just it's so short-sighted on our part. We're connected to everything. And if you think for a second that you're not connected to something, then you tend to care less about it. So what would it hurt to feel connected to Earth? What would it hurt to treat Earth as you'd want yourself to be treated? What would it hurt to treat somebody else the way that you want to be treated? What would it hurt to treat yourself the way you treat other people? So if you're a balanced, giving person, why wouldn't you want to receive from a balanced, giving person? Why wouldn't you cut off anything that is not protective of your being and your soul? Why wouldn't you give more to things that are? Yeah. We're not disconnected. We're not, and we shouldn't be. And it's that disconnect that harms us in the end.
Wow, yeah. And going back to that like performance piece, just to be able to share space, and like from what I heard you say, honor what you're feeling, let that person feel, and the shared space between you. And that's not always so easy, even with when the lights are too bright, or the expectations are too high or too low, or the situation is beyond whatever decimal of stress one can handle. But even in that, like, just coming out of the thrust of performance sometimes, because even for me, I noticed on stage when I can relax vertically, I almost feel like it's a vertical relaxing into a horizontal breath of expanse. And I'm not pushing forward, and I'm not like avoidant leaning back, you know, or there's like attachment styles right there, like, and but I'm just like right here feeling and braving feeling, because it does feel sometimes like the real frontier of bravery is to feel the moment. And so if I'm feeling, and then I let you just really be you, and then I can receive. But if I feel like when you're sharing, I need to make you feel that you're being heard, or I need to make you feel okay, or like we're having a great time. And I don't know how, if it's because I'm a woman or a performer or raised in the South for a period of time. I don't want to even classify. I'm so done even with separate kind of tendencies of places that are, you know, have these judgments. Even places have judgments around them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I just am noticing all the more, like, we've judged each other, we've judged places, we've judged countries, everything is like these separate borders. But all that being said, when it comes to like just that process of you can share and I can actually relax into your sharing. Why would it be? I mean, as a performer, did you have to kind of learn how to do that? Were you conditioned to sort of like, well, let me just entertain you really quickly? Or
I think being operatically trained is so much thought process on the technicality that I didn't even have time to wonder if anybody was enjoying anything until after, when I started writing for myself. And then I was writing and performing, and like I was gifting this song that I just written, and I hadn't sung it for anybody else, and I'm like, do they like it? Do they not like it? And I'm having a walk with my friend yesterday, and I've just been commissioned to do like this wonderful work here. I won't say for what, but it's like in a month's time. But I've been commissioned to do something, and he said, this is what I love about your music. I have your Live in Paris album on rotation, and he said, your music doesn't pander to what might be a ABA format of #1 hits, but it's not obscure. He said, your music is simply you sharing with people. And he's like, and either you like it or you don't like it. And I'm like, yeah, it took me a while to get to that point. That's what it took me a while to get to, because with technical, you can just know how you're standing, know how you're breathing, make sure that it's slightly back this way, and make sure that you're delivering it that way. Have this communication with yourself. Make sure that your emotions are being set through your eyes. My voice teacher used to say, Joy, are you singing with joy? And I'd be like, no, I'm concentrating. And so it's such like great. So I'm like thinking about that, thinking about my posture, thinking about all those things. But when I got into the arena of writing for myself and sharing said experiences with other people, then I was like, how do you want to present that? Because no one tells you how to present you. How do you want to be presented? What do you want to wear? What do you want to sit down for this song? Do you want to look off to your left at that point? What does that mean when you do that? And to like break that down into finally going, all right, I'm ready to sing. And having people say, will you just sing us the song right now? I used to be so like, I wouldn't ask a dentist to work on my teeth on the fly. Why would anybody want me to sing? I'm like, because you can take your instrument with you and it's a gift and it's a blessing. So just work it out, Missy. You know, I had to have all of those conversations with myself to reach the level of comfort. And so I would say it doesn't happen overnight, but it is achievable as long as you want to love it forever. I never want to be imprisoned by music. I always want to love it because it is me. People see me, oh, if they haven't seen me sing for a while, they'll go, you're still singing? I'm like, still breathing. Because to me, there is no separation. Music is me. My friend was like, what's your favorite musical genre? I was like, oh yeah, music. He's like, what? What's your favorite musical genre? Definitely music. Music is definitely my favorite musical genre.
you know, I love this because it's making me realize that as an artist, in ways we have role models and we have people who hold space. They're not even our role models, but they're willing to say, hey, I'll be here as the person you believe in.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's a part that's like no one's to be an artist on some level, you have to be yourself, and to be yourself, you have to not be like anybody else, really. And so in some way, it's about risking not having a role model, you know, risking to recognize like what is outdone and outworn in this system. And it's not just for artists, it's for everyone. And sometimes we don't even see it. And that's why even like the Black Lives Matter movement is so profound here in the States, because it really took, just like the Me Too movement. I mean, it's its own thing. I won't compare it, but there are comparisons and qualities.
Intersectionality is very important. They may not be comparable, but there are planes that are intersecting in there that we're seeing within that movement. People are like, what about all the women who have disappeared, who have been murdered, who have been killed, who have been assassinated, for lack of a better word? What about all of them? Why aren't we talking about them? And well, we're all here to say yes. Well, yes, you can. You can talk about that too within that movement. It's all intersectionality. Absolutely with you.
Yeah, and even in that situation, sometimes to find the thing that we don't have a role model for yet, we have to come together and say, I'm feeling this, I'm kind of feeling this too, I'm feeling something like this. And that always seems to be where my work is on the artist level, where I'm like, does anyone else feel like in the middle of the day they have their dreams come through them and they can smell it? And everyone's like, no. So I'm always asking the weird things but you know, it's interesting because I think back to one of my favorite early writers, Herman Hesse, in his intro in Steppenwolf. He quotes Nietzsche and says that sometimes one goes through, you know, something that in like, you know, a decade or a century or multiple centuries, a whole culture will go through it together. And for that person to go through it alone is so much more of a hell than everybody going through it together. And so, you know, even when we think of what's happening now, I remember what my friends who are healers said, which is, before we can come to the next place, we have to really wring out the trauma. We have to really look at what hasn't been working. And because now we've got a lot of trauma post all this stuff.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And I'm loving my friends such as yourself who are letting me see that it is turning into a universal thing. Like, there are marches all over the world, not just in the US. I watched Haka, I want to call it, from New Zealand, in response to that and in solidarity to the movement. And then in the UK, there's my new hope to work with him one day in time. my new Luke Skywalker. He did his whole UK speech knowing that he might not have a job, but now he's been offered even more work than he was before, because we're learning within our generation that it's actually okay to speak out. So the people who came before us, who did speak out, who integrated schools, and who endured all of that kind of pain, I would say they were the first, because they're enduring this kind of pain. So for them, it was even worse. Like right now, it's awful. It makes me cry on a daily basis. Seeing more allies makes me go, okay, all right, it's not just here. It's not just singular. We're all feeling it. It took 50 plus years for everyone to feel it, because I want to say 1959, there was like still overt lynching, and like now that they were able to hide it within the system, and now we're able to rediscover it and re-unearth it with camera phones, because I'm not going to say it ever went away, but just now that everyone's able to see it instead of that few, it makes me feel like, okay, we're fixing it for other generations. We are addressing it now, because it's not going to go away without talking about it. Like, why do you keep on talking about it? Because it still keeps happening. So not talking about it's not gonna. I always liken it to, yeah, well, if I'm pregnant and I don't talk about it for 9 months, am I gonna have a baby or not? Like, I'm still gonna have that kid. So if I just ignore it, who looks like a dummy?
I love that you gave the voice of like, why are you still talking about it? The voice of like the ex-boyfriend.
Basically, I don't see color. I do. And I love it. I love it all. I love it. I love tones. I think as an artist, if you only liked one color, like, that would suck. But I mean,
another thing though too is like the whole piece on appropriation. You know, I have friends who have been really active calling out appropriation for quite some time, and it has always sat really intensely and sensitively with me, because I think in some ways, even beyond the color of our skin, we can identify with certain cultures more closely than our own. And is that something we're not allowed to? I mean, I don't want to say we're not allowed, because it's a deep, deep journey. But in that regard, when I look at every music, and I think we've all seen this now on Instagram, it's like, if I removed all the Black influence or Black origin of music, this is what my record collection would look like. No records. And you know, that is so intense, even it makes so much sense, even why when I would perform in all white ensembles of jazz music or with all white people in the band, where something always felt like it hurt in my heart, and
It hit different.
I wanted more. I wanted more of that connection and that combination, and it's hard to know, like, how do we move forward with that realization of saying, all right, some of these qualities came from this culture.
Two things. My friend, when she was watching it, watching the video, she just messaged me and was just like, she's a beautiful, blue-eyed, doe-eyed, blonde, and she's just like, I'm embarrassed and repulsed by the skin that I'm in. And I was like, please don't be, because the more people who are like you speak up for everybody else, it's not that I don't have a voice. I don't want that to be a thing. I'm not into this whole savior complex. But the more people who look like you speak up for people who don't look like you, the more other people who look like you are going to listen, etc., etc., etc. And I think it's just, that's point number one. And point number two is, maybe if we all attributed all the things that we appreciate in our cultures, then people would understand where it came from. Like, say you had a song and you say, I was so influenced by Coltrane and Bjork for this song. Like, what if, as musicians, we attributed what we were thinking when we wrote that song? Like, just say, I was asked to do some reggae stuff, and I was like, I'm operatically trained. So I was like, yeah, what does that mean? What's a dub plate? So they're telling me what it is. I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. The man starts playing me this music, and the first thing I hear in my head was Aretha Franklin. And I start writing this song, and there's this reggae beat playing. And that's called the answer rhythm. And I didn't know that, but that's called the answer rhythm. So like, people across border are like, oh, you know the answer rhythm if you're in the reggae, and then they'll play that. But here I come with this dum ba-dum ba-da-da-dun dun, love me baby, dun 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 dun, love me baby. And he's like, you got that from this? Yes, because my influences are going to dictate how I hear things. And if you just said this reggae song was brought to you by the influence of Aretha Franklin, people would be like, oh, okay, cool, I get it, I think also probably we all want to feel as though our music is unique. And while it is unique to us, each of us, our songs that we write, there is nothing new created under the sun, right? So you're influenced by something. And even the way you're brought up influences what you're writing. And even your daily experiences influence what you're writing. And the style of music that you've heard influences what you're writing, so that you create something that is unique to you.
Oh my God. And all these things you're sharing are so wonderful, because they're so relevant to the overarching theme of trust, because this is one giant piece about trust. In a way, it's surrendering our ego that we have to be unlike anybody else, and this perfect anomaly of
But you already are. You know what I mean? You already are. There's nothing we have to do to achieve that. We already are.
Yeah, we're this perfect original expression of a piece in an interconnected network that of ineffable magic.
Yes, magic. Yes. That's it. I'm done.
Joy, I want to ask. I could hang with you for so long and talking, and I just, unfortunately,
we gotta go. We gotta go.
Yeah, or it's coming to a close. So I want to make sure that for people who are not in Bermuda, or who are not in Bermuda and have not had the pleasure of getting to experience your artistry, because you're not only performing in Bermuda but around the world, where can we find out more about you? What's the best place in the digi world?
In the digital world, everything that I'm under is under my full name, Joy T. Barnum. T is in Tom, because I'll never tell. Joy T. Barnum. So my TikTok is under Joy T. Barnum. My Facebook is under Joy T. Barnum. You can follow me on my Facebook fan page, or you can even follow me on my personal page. And I'll tell you, legitimately, I post more on my personal page because I want people to know who I am. I never want to be stuck in this box. One thing I will say, Lauryn Hill said something on her MTV Live Unplugged that she always felt like she had to leave 2/3 of her out of the room, and it was a perfect prison she'd created for herself. And I want to make sure that that never happens to me. I don't ever want to not be myself, and don't ever be like, oh, I have to put on this facade. So I post a lot on my Facebook fan page. On Instagram, that's where I post my TikToks every night. If you're not into TikTok, that's fine. So on Instagram, it's Joy T. Barnum. You can follow as well there. I have a website, joytbarnum.com. You know how websites go. You're always updating them and all that kind of thing. So if you just follow me, we can get to know each other. I think that would be great. I'm singing every night. I'm being commissioned to do something and in Bermuda for the island. So when they refer to me as Bermuda's national treasure, it just makes me feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. So follow me in Bermuda and follow me everywhere and talk to me too, because I want to be able to share back and forth. So if you want to say hey, I'm going to say hey back as well. And that is from one of my very first concerts that was written. I performed out at the back of Rock Island Coffee Shop, and the writer for the Gazette said, Miss Barnum stood at the door and hugged and greeted every single person who came into the show. She changed. She gave us a show for which no one would ever have met the artists for a concert that we got. And I just want to know if that's something that she'll be able to keep up during her whole career. And it is something that I will never stop doing. I want to always speak to the people who come and listen to me. I want to always connect with the people who come and listen to me. Outside of that, I would just be a girl in a bubble. I don't need that in my life. I need the symbiosis of friendship, of relationships. I need that. I need all of that.
Oh, I love that you do that and that you've trusted yourself to be able to do that, because even in all the years of performing, and I've gotten to play all over the world, there was always some part of me that felt so vulnerable with these songs that were coming out that I would write at in my bathroom at night, really quietly playing for nobody, and then I would perform them on stage, and there was always this hard transition for me, just a little bit. I mean, I could perform and be present and totally be there, but as far as trusting that I could be human and talk to people, and just even as a sensitive person have that many conversations, it's a lot of energy exchange.
I'm expended at the end of the night.
and I know we just have a minute or two, so I have one question for you, because I really wanted to get to this subject. So speaking of being expended, I feel like one of the ways that you replete yourself is through cooking. Am I right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Now, I want to say, as a woman who I've gone through a lot of different ways of eating. I've studied a lot of different ways of healthy eating. And I wonder, has it always been something where you find your nourishment? Have you ever, as a woman you're such a beautiful woman, have you ever felt this need to not eat or eat? How have you just chosen, I'm going to nurture myself and put my love in my food? How has that been for you?
Cooking has always been cathartic for me, because as my brother-in-law says, he posted underneath the food post, he's like, I know you guys are loving all my sister-in-law's cooking pages, and yes, it tastes just as good as it looks, but if you can imagine it, she's a better baker than she is a cook. My sister cooked for me when I was younger, because my mom worked a lot of jobs to get two of us through private school and college and all that kind of stuff. And when my sister left, she was my lifeline. When she left, and because she's older than me, and it was just me alone in the home, it'd be 2:00 on a Friday morning, and I'm on a Saturday morning, so from Friday night, and I'd have been on my third proofing of yeast rolls for coffee rolls, and my mom didn't say anything about it. She would just let me bake every Friday night, and I'd bake from Friday night at 9:00 until 4:00 in the morning, and I would just bake and bake and bake. And I'm known from college, my friends said that what they remember most about me is smelling my bread baking at 8:00 in the morning. I knew what time classes were, so I'd put my bread on. My sister was like, what college freshman has a bread machine but my sister? And I would put my bread on, I'd go to class, and when I'd get back, I would tell all the girls who were lined up outside of my dorm room. Get in line, bring your own napkin and your own knife. And then I'd cut them slices of bread and squeeze, it's not, I can't believe it's not butter or country crock on their bread, and they would smooth it on, and they remember me as the bread girl. So it's been since time that cooking is cathartic for me. Being able to follow a specific set and having an outcome fixes all the chaos that goes on in the creativity of my mind. And like moment in time, I get to create something specifically that's been done before that I don't have to guess what it's going to do with baking. And so with cooking is the exact opposite for me. I get to discover what happens if I do this and what happens if I do that. And ooh, that's amazing. And it makes me feel so good inside to have that other avenue and then to feed it to everybody else.
That's amazing. And so you've always also just trusted like in your body as well, to just say, I can feed my body, and this is how my body is, and you can stay very relaxed around how you feed yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was rigid for a time because I didn't know what my body was allergic to. So then I was afraid of food for like a full year. I was just afraid of it, and I didn't want to touch it because it felt like shards of glass on my stomach, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And already as a vegetarian, I've eliminated certain things, and I finally just got tested for it, and now I'm fine. I'm like, oh, so I have to avoid X, Y, and Z. Good. I'm gonna see all the things that I was missing out in my diet. Great. I can't have chickpeas and kidney beans, which means I can't have my maple and mustard baked beans with those beans, and I can't have hummus with those beans. But I bet you I could make a black bean spread that'll just knock your socks off. I bet you I could do something with black eyed peas and make a black eyed pea gravy to put over some mashed potatoes with some sauteed greens. Like, I'm not looking at, oh, I can't have that, woe is me. I'm like, what have I been missing out on? All these other vegetables and fruits that I hadn't thought about that I can have.
So let me just tell you in our last minute what I really see you doing in the world. I think you should create that higher education that you said was not happening in Bermuda, the college. And yes. one of the majors can be culinary, and one of the majors can be artistic and musical, and one of the majors can just be theosophy and philosophy. I guess philosophy and spiritual counseling. And you make that school, I'll help you make it, and then I will hire in Bermuda and co-teach it with you. We'll start that first like Ivy League school in Bermuda.
I love it.
Or graduate school.
I love it. We should just do it. I'm with you.
Okay. And we'll be like, and we decided to do it on a podcast interview.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everyone who's gonna be watching this in the future. People who are watching it now, thank you for letting us take up some space in your life, and hopefully just keep a nugget in your heart. This
has been so wonderful. I'm so glad I followed my intuition on this one and just kept finding you until you were free.
Thank you so much.